grew up to society and grew into civilization. Is this what we would come up with? I mean, really, this doesn't make a lot of sense.
We came from the sludge, Max. Straight out, and just this is the end result of it.
Yeah, this is it. It looks like we're pretty much in the sludge still. But
That's right.
It doesn't make sense. I mean, if we were living with nature, even whatever we were doing, why did we make metal? How did we even know what metal was, let alone how to make it? And why would we make this stuff to begin with? What purpose would it serve? And once we make metal and make iron and all this stuff, it all falls apart from there. We end up with this. So why would we do that? It doesn't make sense for a consciousness in bloom that would come up with something like the pyramids, that would know how to soften stone and make Mayan ruins, because that appears to be how they were made, was through softening stone. And there's techniques that exist for doing this still that the medicine men use. So how did we come up with something like that and then turn it into something like this? It doesn't make any sense at all. So you just have to ask the question. And I've been really wondering this, and I keep coming back to the same answer. It's not one that I particularly like, but I keep coming back to it over the years. So, maybe we'll talk about that a bit later. But it doesn't make a lot of sense to me at all.
I definitely want to talk about that with you in terms of where this is coming from. I recently listened to a presentation by Graham Hancock, who has been, doing specifically in his work on supernatural, trying to, I guess, find the root of human consciousness and where the difference happens, so to speak. He's been looking into the archaeological record, and certainly there are a lot of things which are pointing in the other way in terms of work like Michael Cremo has done, finding things in the fossil record and deeper down, which indicates that humanity or some kind of activity anyway has been going on for millions of years. But if we do take the official version for now, and what Graham Hancock was trying to say in this presentation, it was that it was kind of boredom, if you will, for 6 million years or so after the modern man, if you will, was there. The only evidence was basically of some kind of stone hammer, if you will, and that was like the only progression forward, and it was that for 6 million years, and then something happened there, and there's speculation obviously what that was, and his particular angle that I heard was that this was entheogenic related. It was mushrooms or some kind of drug, it was some hallucinogenic substance that we either stumbled upon or were given, what have you, that kind of was the spark of consciousness. But then when I listened to that idea, Max, which is very, very interesting, and I don't discount it at all, but I still get back to the same point. Well, is that then what we have today? Is that the end result of that new consciousness entering into mankind? That doesn't make sense to me either. What about you, Max?
No, it doesn't make much sense at all. Actually, I go back to the story of Manco Capac in South America with the presentation of tools. I believe Sitchin touched on that in one of his books as well. The story of, what was the city called Tinoch. And there was a ceremony that went down in Lake Titicaca, and the gods presented Manco Capac with tools. It appears as tools anyway. It looks like he's giving him some object, and it looks like an axe head or like a cross between an axe and a pick or something. But it seems to be a presentation of tools. And it wouldn't surprise me if it started there somehow. I mean, there's a lot to be said for some of that work. And, I wouldn't put past anything. I mean, all the talk that Sitchin came up with the Anunnaki and all this sort of stuff, all very interesting, hard to prove, but very interesting and highly possible. So you've got to wonder about all that as well. An interesting side note on that is a lot of people say, well, why would these bloodlines be doing all these things over such vast amounts of years? And whether it's true or not, an interesting side note is that the talk of the Anunnaki, apparently there was 3,600 Earth years to one Anunnaki year. So really they could be doing all this in a couple of months if they're still here. You know what I mean? It wouldn't take long. What they've done in the last 2,000 years, I mean, this is about 8 months to them if they're still here. So that's an interesting thing to think about as well.
Do you think the perception of time, though, is same all across the board? If we look at even the life here on Earth, it seems that and even individual human life, obviously, and the different things we do. Even from day to day, I can do one activity or the same activity, on 2 different days, but I can have a vastly different, relationship to the time it took to do that thing. Some days, if it's a lot of fun, what have you, it might go by as a flash. In other days, it takes forever, to get the same thing done. So it seems like time is relative, if you will, in that sense, and maybe it's the same thing then from that perspective, that we have a linear way of thinking about time right now here, but these beings might not. It might be that they are either in touch with another level of reality, again, another dimension. They might even be living on a different plane, if you will, than we do. But there is an interface between them and us in terms of, who knows, sacred geometry, astronomical alignments. Who knows, Max? But what do you make of that in terms of the time?
Well, I think time is based on perception as well. I think there's a lot more going on in reality that we can't perceive, and we simply get told that this is what time is all about. There was a question I used to ask people, which was, how old would you be if you didn't know how old you were? And that's kind of an interesting way of thinking about it.
Yeah.
I think time is all based on perception. Time is simply what people often refer to as the 4th dimension, but I don't think it's linear at all. I think that it might very well be cyclic, which could explain some deja vu and all that sort of stuff. We seem to be doing this a lot anyway. A lot of this feels familiar. It feels like we've done this before. It's almost like there's a program running that keeps running until we get it right, and we're kind of running out of chances to get it right or something like that. That's kind of what it feels like. But time seems to be speeding up and slowing down and doing all sorts of things at the moment. It really appears to be glitching. I find myself doing things like I'll look at the clock and then I'll go and do all this stuff and come back and look at the clock and it's only 1 minute later. And it's very, very bizarre. So it seems to be jumping all over the place for me.
Do you think that the program, if you will, that you're talking about, that about time or the cyclical nature of things, do you think that is above what we have been discussing in terms of the conspiracy, if you will, even the bloodline program, that even that is something that is recurring within a larger cycle for whatever reason? Maybe again it's going back to that idea that we continuously might not learn from the mistakes that we are doing, and therefore we're trapped in this loop of trying to wake up to the fact of what is going on, or what do you make of that, Max?
Well, yeah, it's to face the shadow. We have to learn to face the shadow. See, we have to realize that everything that's happening is from our inability to face the shadow. It's our inability to know that we're free. All of the things that are going on, it can all be traced to that one thing. And I think it's what's happening now. A lot of people are waking up and they're remembering this. And I think that's the important thing to do. I really do. Everything that we face, it's all because of governments and this and that and the system itself, but the system only functions because of the energy that we give the system. I almost like to just stand up and tell the world to just stop. Everybody just stop for 5 minutes and just listen to me for a second, and try to tell them what's going on and just let them know that they're all actually free and that no one's a threat to them, that we can all live in harmony. It's so simple. It's so simple. I think that it's, I really think that's the key to the whole thing. And I think that everything has to be experienced as well. I think we have to have these negative things in order for the positive to happen. It's just the way it goes. It's such a rabbit hole. It really is when you go down and start trying to figure out what's going on. But I think it's all in balance. I really do. I think it's all the way it should be. But, I just believe there's too many people out there portraying it as something to fear when I see it as opportunity. I see all of it as opportunity for us to realize there's a problem and to realize that all we have to do is connect with each other to fix it. It's really that simple. And that's everything that I see as opportunity in all of this. And I just hope that people stand up and embrace the opportunity.
Absolutely. And I've always said that as well, that the key, to turning the tide, if you will, lies within consciousness as well. I mean, I don't believe we'll ever manage to. Well, we might manage to change one or two. I don't know. Again, of these henchmen that I was alluding to earlier, a politician or whatever. One woke up, amazing, what have you. but at the end of the day, there will be 500 more lined up to take